Morning, everybody. I'm headed into work again this morning, and I've been listening to, if you've been paying attention, been listening to Leviticus and Matthew, and really cool to kind of hear not the contrast of the Old to the New Testament, but the complement from the Old to the New. And we start out today, Leviticus. I started reading about Moses. Moses starts talking to the people, and he starts telling them how to do sacrifices. He starts doing the sacrifices for Anthony. He starts doing the sacrifices for Aaron's family, and getting Aaron all set up in the priesthood, and he's doing a lot of the different sacrifices, and some of these sacrifices require things like ox and sheep and food, bread offerings, grain offerings. These guys are in the desert. Does that make sense? I mean, they're in the desert. They don't have all this stuff, and they're offering this stuff up. They're sacrificing these things to the Father. It's almost like Moses adds more and more and more to what needs to be sacrificed. And it's kind of interesting because the next scripture we skip over to in Matthew, Yeshua is being blessed by a woman who pours perfume on his feet. And all the disciples are like, hey, what are you doing? You could sell that and, give the money to the poor, or, and Jesus stops them and he says, look, you don't understand what she's doing. She's preparing me for burial. She is not sacrificing too much for me. And what I think is interesting is, I know friends. I got a friend named Eric Anderson who leads a ministry in Nashville, around about Nashville, Tennessee, and he had to basically put his entire family in what most people would consider to be a jeopardized position where, things would be unsure financially for them. I have a friend named Tommy Hodges who, quit a pretty decent career and went straight into the ministry. I've got a lot of friends who have decided to give up on things that most of the world would say, whoa, that's a big sacrifice. Maybe you're mishearing God, or maybe you're not doing what you're supposed to do. I've got other friends that have, completely given their whole careers up and gone into ministry, and then found out they needed to get back into their career. And, the world, and even we as Christians, like to look at those people and say, hey, maybe you were wrong, or, these kinds of things. Here's the point. If you're willing to sacrifice something for the Father, if you're willing to give up something because you feel called by the Father, or you feel called to give something up for Christ, then do it. Don't let the world try to tell you, even the church, especially the church, try to tell you that it's too much. Don't let them try to drag down what it is that you feel called to do for God. We don't always understand what other people are called to do. And it's funny because some people sacrifice more than others in Scripture, and yet the people that may not have sacrificed as much end up being called to heaven and walking with God, and we know they went to heaven. And then we know people that sacrificed everything and they went to heaven. At the end of the day, do what God calls you to do in your life. First of all, make sure you know how to hear from God. But once you started hearing from God, start giving what God asks of you. It'll change you. It'll change who you are. Don't let other people define what that is. Don't let other people influence what that is as much as you allow the Father Himself to influence you on what He says is a good and acceptable sacrifice. I know it's a weird one, but I thought it was really interesting just to hear, you know, the compliment of where Moses is. Moses is asking for people to bring all these animals and turtle doves and all this kind of stuff and food that can have been easy to just give up. And to take it a step further, what is God asking you to sacrifice in your life? And are you willing? Because sacrifice causes us to have to hurt a little bit to give it up. It causes us to have to really decide whether we're giving it to Him or if we're just kind of doing it for religious reasons. It's not the deepest thing in the world, but it is what God gave me this morning. And I just pray that as you go throughout your day today, that you start to listen more closely to what it is that the Father's asking of you, what Jehovah's asking of you, and where He wants you to be, and what He wants you to sacrifice for Him. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's your current job. Maybe it is your situation where you live. Maybe it's your pride, and you need to get on your face. Maybe it's your hatred. Maybe it's your anger. Whatever it is, give it up. Give it to Him. Give it to Him as soon as you can. Run to Him with it and lay it at His feet. Watch what He does with it. Your life will change in ways you can't even imagine. Just like these people who sacrificed to the Father in Scripture, and just like these people I've spoken about who sacrificed where they were for the Father. I can see where they are now, and it's amazing to see what God does with them. Thank you guys. God bless you. I love you.